6 was dealing with the payroll, or not the payroll, the checkbook. We did bank reconciliation. Make sure that you read, and I've put up there to read the summaries at the back of the chapters so that you're prepared for those questions. There's more questions from 6 and more hands-on from chapters 7 and 8. You're going to have a payroll register to complete. Here's just an example of one. Yours will be the big sheet for you to complete. So you'll have that. I'm looking for an example of our transactions. Remember the wage base, and I'm not going to test you on what those percentages are. Just look at it in the problem. Look at it in the problem, maybe make some notes at the top of the payroll register, whatever that wage base is, so that you don't have to keep looking back at the test to see what those percentages were or what the wage base is. I gave you a list of the transactions that I want you to remember, and the first one up there is to do what? If I'm asking you to do that first transaction, what would be my instructions on the test? Record the payroll. We're just recording it. Where does all of that information come from? The payroll register. All right. And we have all of the deductions right here. And we have the gross amounts right here that we're going to expense. And then we have the net amount, because if we add the net with all of those things that we've withheld, it should equal the total amount of the earnings, the gross amount. But you can't just put gross amount. You have to tell me what account we're going to use. It's the last two columns on the payroll register, and those are the expenses. We have to expense the total amount. The second transaction, what would I be asking for if I wanted this one? Record the payroll taxes. This is what the employer is responsible for. The OASDI and the Social Security, both FICA, or I'm sorry, the OASDI and the Medicare, still both FICA, and it's the exact amount from the payroll register. And then the employer is responsible for the unemployment tax if we have state and if we have federal. That one has a wage base to it. Once the employee earns that amount, then we don't have to pay that anymore as the employer. Maria, what was that problem number? Oh, it was Billy's Market,
yeah,
wasn't it? On Billy's Market, on the third month, you get into several employees that have matched that $7,000, and you have to put on there the taxable amount of their earnings for the student and FUTA on the payroll register. You've got to check that. You've got to check that with me, because as we were working through Maria's, we had some numbers that weren't correct. You'll miss that on the test if you don't let me check that on Billy's. Rebecca, was yours okay? Okay. But that's where you can make a mistake. You've got to take the amount that they've earned, and you need to look at the cumulative earnings and then look at the wage base. So from the cumulative, you'll subtract that wage base. This one was $7,000 on Billy's Market. And the difference from there is what you're going to subtract from the cumulative for that pay period. Daniel.
That's only been over
$7,000, right?
Only if it's over 7. Right, you're going to pay it on the whole amount. But the third month on Billy's Market, you run into that. So it would be a good review when you get to that third one to at least work through that. Bring it by on Monday. I'll be in my office except from 1:30 until, I don't know what time, 3 o'clock maybe. Or you can send me a picture and text it to me. Did I do the third month correctly? I don't mind checking it from a picture on your phone. So just somehow work through that third month so that you can see how you need to subtract those amounts. All right. Then we have a transaction that's in between this one and this one that is not in your book, but it's in Billy's Market. And that is to transfer the money from the regular checking account to the payroll checking account. Payroll cash, what is the official name in Billy's Market? Payroll checking cash, okay. Make sure you use the correct name, and you can get the correct name from either my chart of accounts or from the ledger. In Billy's Market, you could go to the ledger and look at it. We're transferring the money. Most companies have a separate account for that payroll just because when everything is cleared, it should come up to a 0. That one's not in the book, but you'll do it 3 times in Billy's Market. Transfer that money. Then we have pay the payroll taxes. If we're paying the 401 taxes, what will they include? Okay, we're going to pay the FICA OASDI, the FICA Medicare, and the federal income tax. That is a federal form that we filled out. Now, if we need to pay SUDA and FUTA, I wouldn't combine that with this. This is the 401 taxes because we'll use this number for the 401. If we're paying the SUDA and the FUTA, just read through my instructions on the test, and you'll have cash involved, and then you'll have the payable account as your debit, whatever you're paying. To pay the payroll, what does that transaction look like? See if I even have one. Didn't we have to make a payment? Oh, here's one. The last one. And it could be wages and salaries. Again, use the correct name for the account. Get it from the chart of accounts or get it from the ledger. So the wording will be very important whenever you're taking the test. Record the payroll. It's coming from the payroll register, no cash. Record the payroll taxes, no cash, and it's the amount that the employer is going to pay. Transfer the money to the payroll checking account. Pay the payroll. Pay the 401 taxes. Pay the SUDA and the FUTA. Now, I may not ask you to do all of those. Remember, I think this test is the easiest test, but students make it out to be very difficult because I give you a whole page of a journal, but you don't have to fill it up. Just do the transactions that I'm asking you to do. Look at the summaries at the back of 6, 7, and 8. look at the intro on the introduction page of those chapters because one of the questions comes from there. It's just the intro on the chapter. It's only 6, 7, and 8. And then read the summaries. Any questions about what you'll see on the test?
That's all it is.
That's all. Billy's will be due on Tuesday. If you need to stay a little bit after the test to finish it, we'll be in here until our ending time. But once you finish the test, if you've already finished Billy's, you can leave. That's all we'll do. On Thursday next week, I will give you, we'll start Paula's Boutique, and I'll give you those handouts. I don't think I'll have those ready for Tuesday. I think when you finish the test, I'll just let you go. Okay, and then we'll just hold off on that until Thursday. We covered Chapter 9 the other day, except to finish the demo. We were talking about accounts receivable, and Chapter 10 is accounts payable, and it's so similar to Chapter 9 that I think we'll just breeze right through it. Right. Any questions about what might be on the test? Then if you'll get your handouts from the other day when we did the demo, and we sort of had the camera cut off, so I'm just going to do just a little review. And we were doing 9A2 as our demo. And the first thing we did was we were recording the transactions, and I think we had about 6 of them. And I asked you to use your diagonal between the accounts receivable, which is the controlling account, and the subsidiary ledger, the name of our customer, and then put a diagonal in the post-reference column. We did all of the transactions, and then when we posted, we only posted those accounts that or the lines that had the diagonal on it. When you're doing your homework, you'll post all of them, but we were trying to speed it up, so we only posted those items that had the diagonal. When we talk about a subsidiary ledger, we have an account for each one of our customers. There's one for Jay Wallace, there's one for Woodnall, there's one for Danielson, and there's one for, is that all we had? Did we just have 3? When we're recording the transaction, on that first line, on the second transaction for this demo problem, we have accounts receivable diagonal, the J. Wallace, and we have the amount of the sale and the sales tax. The problem has to tell you what that percent is for the sales tax. When you're working on Paula's Boutique, the sales tax will be the same for everybody, right? So you can just make a note of what that sales tax is, and your problems could be different as you're doing your homework. So always look at the problem for the amount of the sales tax. Our customer owes us for the amount of the sale plus the sales tax. We are just the keeper of the sales tax. It's sales tax payable because it's a liability to us. It's not income. It's not an expense. It's a liability that we have to pay when it's time to pay the sales tax. And we'll turn that into the state. Right? So we have sales tax payable. It doesn't matter what order you put that in as long as you have your debit first. And then the sales. Here it was auto part sales. Our customer owes us for both. We had several transactions where we were recording sales, and then we had a return. Our customers may not always be happy with what they've purchased from us. They may return it. Maybe it was defective. Maybe it just wasn't the right color. Remember my pillows from Anna's Linens and the hassle that my daughter had trying to take those back. And that would even make this transaction a little bit more complicated because they had to give me $4 back on a gift card because there was a difference in the price. I'm not going to make your problems that complicated, but that would have been a more complicated transaction than just this one. When someone returns something, we want to make sure that we give them the tax back also. We've collected that tax. We haven't paid it yet to the state. We can give it back to them. When you return something, you want your sales tax back. And then we have accounts receivable again, our diagonal. This one was R. Davidson, and then the diagonal in the post reference. If you'll do it as you're writing the transaction in the journal, then you'll remember that you have to post it twice. In this book, we don't have account numbers for the subsidiary ledger where we have all of these customers. So what do we put here when we post it?
The check mark.
Just a check mark. Okay, they're just listed alphabetically. And I don't know why he didn't put account numbers in the subsidiary ledgers. As we were working through the problem, we only posted the ones that had a check mark. After we finished posting, we were to prepare a schedule of accounts receivable. When we get to chapter 10, we'll do a schedule of accounts payable. We do a schedule only for the accounts that have a balance left. And we only had 3 that still had a balance. I think we had 4 accounts. Notice how that form is listed. It's the name of the company, the name of the form, and it's a specific date. Schedule of accounts receivable and a specific date. $sign on the top line, $sign on the total. I have a single line here to indicate that I added, and then the double line here. You don't have to skip a line, but you can. You've got enough space. They gave you a huge form, so you can skip a line if you need to. Just make it look nice on the piece of paper. When we go to computerized accounting, when you were printing Atlas and Zell, you can see how nice it looks. And it really does. It does a good job of putting those accounts in those forms in a good order. This was your balance for accounts receivable. When we do the schedule of accounts receivable, we can go back and check this number right here with the number on the schedule of accounts receivable. What is this account called? Starts with a C. No, not contra revenue. Which one is the contra revenue?
The sales returns and allowances.
Sales returns and allowances is the contra. I was looking for my form to show it to you. But what is this account called?
The controlling account.
Controlling. It's a controlling account. The balance in there equals the balance on the schedule. And you'll see those new terms on the test. Look at the summary for chapter 9 because all of those terms are there.
What does that mean?
It controls this. We'll have a controlling account with accounts payable also. It will be the controlling account for that subsidiary ledger. Where did that come from? I don't know, Sharon. Mr. Accountant, I don't know. You know, we have standard terms for things in accounting, and that really does control the schedule. Because that is just a part. There was a great picture in the PowerPoint, and I think that picture is in your book too, that shows a partial ledger with the accounts, and then it shows the subsidiary ledger. When we talk about a subsidiary, What would be a definition for that?
Like something that's derived from something else.
And there's still the big company or the big
It's still
account.
part of the big thing, but it's like it's separate, like,
Separate but still the same,
yeah.
okay? And that's what we have with the subsidiary ledger. And this one is accounts receivable. We'll have two, accounts receivable, and in chapter 10, we'll have the accounts payable. I think these two chapters are really kind of easy. Would you agree? Easier than the payroll? A nice break from the payroll? We're back to posting. There's a lot of posting when we have the controlling account and the subsidiary ledger because we're posting it twice. Now, if we were using a special journal and we were using a computerized accounting system, how difficult would the posting be? Not very, would it? Just as easy as hitting the save button. And you got a taste of that when we did the Atlas and Zell. Some of you got a bigger taste of that with the Sullivan because it's a more complicated problem. It is the Sullivan that we did by hand. Just a few numbers are different, but the transactions should have been exactly the same. All right, any questions about chapter 9? Any questions about the test that we'll take on Tuesday? All right, then I'd like to give you some lab time. And I wrote up there what we need to be working on. You should have 6, 7, and 8 in the tutors are together. So 7 and 8 are together, 6 is separate. You can work on the tutor for 9, or you could work on Billy's Market and then let me do a check, right, before you leave today. So we still have, we have an hour or so. So I'd like for you to work. Thank you.